Where is the money to fund the wages needed to keep our community preschools afloat? How come, after the IRC judgment made it patently clear to the government that they were simply wrong when it came to their responsibility to fund these services, and patently wrong when it came to the misinformation that they've been peddling about the financial position of these services, that they have still failed to make the funding commitment that would ensure that the excellent staff in these services are given the wage rises they need? Why is it that after everything we've learned from the early childhood crisis over the last 2 years, with the clear statistics showing that community preschools offer a safer and better quality service, and after the recommendations made in our Education Committee inquiry on the need to bolster these not-for-profit services and adopt measures to retain and attract workers, how can New South Wales Labor defend its intransigence on this issue? It is particularly galling when you dig into the budget papers and see the massive underspend in the New South Wales Childcare and Economic Opportunity Fund. The CEOF, set up by the then coalition government in 2022, had as its objective to increase workforce participation, particularly of women, by making quality childcare more affordable and accessible. I argued at the time that the fund was established that this was looking at the value of early learning from the wrong perspective, and wouldn't it be lovely if we could look at it from the perspective of children? But nevertheless, the 2022 Act stated that, and I may have had a hand in inserting this in the Act at the time, quote, "To achieve this object, the Act aims to support the early childhood education and care workforce and sector." At establishment, the CEOF was touted as investment of up to $5 million. Under Section 18 of the Act, a minimum amount was to be appropriated out of the Consolidated Fund into the CEOF, $100 million in 23-24, $270 million in 24-25, and $405 million in 25-26. Thereafter, it was stated that $650 million per year would be invested in the fund. However, when we look at the budget, we find that of the $405 million allocated to the fund last year, only $92 million was spent. Why was the other $312 million not spent towards, adequately funding the wages of the 700 plus community preschools across the state? And that's before you look at the amounts not spent out of the fund in earlier years. Out of the $100 million invested in 23-24, only $40 million was spent. In 24-25, only $75.5 million of the $270 million was spent. So that's $567.5 million over the term of Labor's government appropriated to the fund, but not actually spent, and only $207.5 million spent. What exactly is the Treasurer doing with that extra $500 million that could and should have been spent on supporting the early childhood education and care workforce and sector? Added to the $650 million allocated to the fund in this financial year, we're talking about over $1.2 billion in available funds. What gives?